There is a day ahead. And I really live in a van, and it is winter, and at night the temperatures drop below freezing, and I have to cover up under two blankets to try to kind of stay warm, but I never stay warm. And I really live paycheck to paycheck, and at the end of the 2 weeks, I've got nothing left to show for the previous paycheck. I'm surviving every 2 weeks, and I'm really happier than ever. But am I actually happy? Yes, but what I mean by happy isn't maybe what it would seem like I would mean by happy. I mean something closer to gratitude, something closer to contentment. And so don't imagine a guy living in a van and he's traveling around the country and looking at the most beautiful sights that nature has to offer, and he's in a state of ecstasy and wanderlust, because that's not me. I'm not that guy. I've been living in a van for a year and a half, and maybe when I began, I was kind of that guy, but I'm certainly not that guy anymore. Because this journey has become tumultuous, arduous, the hardest thing that I've ever done by far. And for the past week, yesterday, and for the past week, I certainly haven't felt happy. And the reason why I haven't felt happy is because this world, maybe you would call it this society, this country, but I think it's just the negative energy that encompasses this world in general. It does a great job of making you fall in line, to beating you into submission and making you acquiesce to living the way that it wants you to live. But I was unwilling, and I'm still unwilling now. But it keeps beating me. It does keep beating me. And the reason why I began living in a van is because we have a purpose in this world. We are born into this world, and we will eventually leave this world. But in the meantime, in that place between birth and death, there is something that we are meant to do. And maybe it's not just one thing that we're meant to do, but more so there's a person who we're meant to become, a good that we're meant to bring into this world. But this world tries to take your attention, grab you by the wrist, direct you where to go. This world tries to get you to spend your entire adult life working for another person just to get to retirement or for your life to end. But just before you get to that place where the sacrifice that you've put in and the work that you've done and the money that you've gained, just before you reach retirement, or when you get there, you realize, oh, that was all for nothing. All of the money that I accumulated during that time, the money itself doesn't suffice. The money doesn't suffice, and just making it to another day doesn't suffice. We are meant for so much more. And so the reason why I began living in a van is because I was in that rut. I was in that rut, and I would drive to work every day and felt like I was drowning. And all of my time and attention and energy went to the job that I was working. And just when I thought I was getting ahead, I would fall behind a little bit more and have to give it more of myself, more of my time and energy and attention. And it reached the point where I was like, no, American dream. I need the American dream. American dream in the sense of I just have to get away. I've got to get away because I cannot spend the entirety of my life working for someone else. I would trade all of these things that I've gained so far just for a little bit of wiggle room, just so I can try something else. American dream in the sense of what I think about is these guys came from boats. They got onto boats. They were in Great Britain. They were in France. They were all over the world, and they were underneath Pyrenees. And then they hear of new land, a new land called America, a place where they can go to get away from the woman who says, Oh, they don't have any bread. Just let them eat cake. A place where they can get away from the people who are ruling over them and lording over them and extracting all of their time and attention. They were like, I'll risk everything, get on a boat, and on the boats people are getting diseases and most of them aren't even making it to America. I'll take that risk just so I can try something new, because here I'm in a box. And that's where I was at as well. I wasn't in Europe. I was already in America, but that same energy now has become a blanket over us as well. It has begun to suffocate us as well. And so I was working for a company and I was like, let me just leave, get away from all of these people around me. I need freedom of thought. I need time to think. And maybe if I have time to think, I can be creative. And if I'm creative, maybe I can find a new life, a new path, a new way, a life living that would be worthwhile and that would be meaningful, because where I was at certainly wasn't it. But it's not just where I was at. The problem isn't my job specifically. It is the being forced to work for other people, the being forced to acquiesce under what other people want. And there's a book by Leo Tolstoy called Confessions, and this book is about his struggle with mental health and the depression and anxiety that he felt after he had become a successful author. And so he's just writing his confessions like, hey, this is how I actually feel. Yes, I've had all of this worldly success, but I saw that it's all empty. And then he describes a dream that he had, a vision. And in this vision, he is being chased by a monster on the land. And because he's being chased by a monster, he ends up jumping into a well to escape the monster. And when he jumps into this well to escape the monster, he hangs on to a branch until the beast above him leaves so that he can get out of the well. But the beast above him doesn't leave. It just stays there with its jaws wide open. And below him at the bottom is a water beast, a beast that is living at the bottom of the well. And its jaws are wide open as well. And all of a sudden, in this dream, two mice come out of the wall, the brick of the well, one black and one white. And they begin chewing away at the branch that he is holding on to. But he looks up, and as these two mice are chewing away at the branch, sending him inevitably down to the beast at the bottom that he will be devoured, he glimpses a little piece of honey. There's a piece of honey on the branch, and he licks the honey, and the honey is the little bit of pleasure until the two mice inevitably bite off the branch and send him to his demise. And I think of that because he's describing that that's what his life is like. And when I first heard that, I was like, oh, it's not just what his life is like, that is what life is like overall. And that we have to wait. Our time is inevitably coming, our demise is inevitably coming, and we're just waiting for these two mice, the black and white, the day and night, to chew through the branch that we're hanging on to. And the only pleasure that sustains us is this little bit of honey that we've been given. But that's not right. I've come to learn that that's not right. It'd be better to disregard the honey, not consume the honey at all, and instead confront one of the beasts and that is your only hope. Confront the thing that you're most afraid of. That is your only hope, and my honey is empty as well. So I might as well confront the beast. Right. So I bring that up because that's what happens in jobs. We are giving all of our time to somebody who we maybe don't respect, or just in general, you shouldn't be giving all of your time to another person anyway. You should find your own life's purpose and carve out a way for yourself. But we tell ourselves that there's a little bit of honey on this branch. The job isn't that miserable and it pays us well, and this honey is going to sustain us until retirement, and then we won't get devoured by the beasts, but we're going to get devoured by the beasts regardless, and it'd be better to confront them. And that honey is not as sweet as you think it is. That honey will lose its flavor. And for Tolstoy, that honey does lose its flavor. Right. And so I was aggravated. I was irate. I was mad the other day. Because despite the fact that this world is just so brutal and it always forces you to acquiesce, I've made this change, and I was like, dude, I don't even want the pleasures of this world. You don't even have to pay me a bunch of money. I don't even need, although of course I would like a stove and I would like a warm shower at my own house every night. I'll give those things up for freedom of time, for a little bit of wiggle room, because that wiggle room at least gives me hope and it gives me potential that I could carve a path out for myself. But this world doesn't stop. This world is brutal. And although I'm living in a van and it drops below freezing at night, I am cold as can be. Signs go up everywhere, meaning there's signs to not allow you to sleep in your van. They're like, don't sleep in your van. And I'm like, really? You guys, and I don't even know who you guys are. It's just it's the nature of society, but you guys have bought up all of the land. You guys apparently own all of this land. I just need a parking spot the size of my vehicle, and I'm willing to freeze at night just to get a little bit of sleep to keep making it through. And you are making it, you're trying to make it so that somebody can't even do that. They can't even sleep in their van because you want them in the system, or you want them to acquiesce and live the way that other people are living. You want them to do a normal life. And so it's an either or situation. It's like either you do this and you work for someone else and you can make it through and be a normal member of society, but you're miserable your whole life, or you can try to take a leap of faith and do something else, follow your life's purpose, and you're going to get tyrannized that way as well. We're going to try to force you into the other box. And it's brutal. It is brutal. So I was irate, and I was thinking to myself, man, this journey is hard. This burden that I've picked up, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Was it right? Did I make a mistake in undertaking this journey overall? Should I never have begun? And then I thought back to when I was working my previous job, and I imagined driving on the highway, and I had a Lincoln MKZ, the car that is in Matthew McConaughey's commercial. It's like a cheap luxury car. Matthew McConaughey's leaning back in the car, one hand on the steering wheel, looking all cool. That is me as well, and I was going to work, and I remembered that time, and I was like, anything I have to deal with to live in a van, to have some freedom of time, not work like I was working, not give to another company and other people all of my time and attention, whatever I have to do to make that happen is worth it, and I will undertake that cross. I will undertake that burden. Because that was miserable. That was bad. And I realized I'm happier than ever. Despite the fact that this world tries to do anything it can to get you to acquiesce, I am happier than ever. Kind of. Kind of. The issue is that you see people online, and before I began living in a van, you can see van life people, and they are in states of ecstasy, and they are doing what I alluded to, which is looking at all of these, visiting all of the beautiful sights that nature and this country has to offer, and they just seem joyous all of the time. And before I was living in a van, I would watch those videos, and I knew that that wasn't what I was trying to do. That isn't why I was doing it. I was doing it just because I wanted to create. I wanted to write. I wanted to write, and I also wanted to record videos, and I didn't know what videos I wanted to record, but it ended up being these videos. And I don't even know what I'm doing here, but I'm doing it, and I love it. And so that's what I wanted to do, have freedom of my mind so that I could create. I just wanted to be immersed in creation. But then when the world attacks you, or even if it isn't actually attacking you, but you feel like you're under attack, you have this feeling of me against the world. The whole world is against me. And when you feel like the whole world is against you, you feel alone. And when you feel alone, you maybe try to talk to other people about it, but they can't understand you. And then you feel like nobody can understand you. And you just spiral. And that's how I felt for the past week. And so I couldn't really create, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to create something non-redemptive. I don't want to be in a state of negativity and create something that is bad for other people, that other people consume it and they feel worse when it's over, because my internal state was negative. And so for the past week, I just really haven't created. I've written, not to show any other people, but just written just to write, because that's what I do. But I didn't feel the ability to create anything else. And because the journey that I'm on is just oriented towards creation, that's what I want to do, is create. Yet here I am living in a van and making all of these sacrifices, but I'm not even creating. I'm not even doing the thing that I've set out to do. It's like, what's the point? And it's a spiral. Because now, not only are you not creating, and not only do you feel like the world is against you, not only do you feel like nobody can understand you, but the days are empty and meaningless. And my internal state becomes empty and meaningless. But I had a conversation a while back, and also I'll add that the state of emptiness and meaningless is synonymous with feeling depleted and depressed and defeated, all of those things. And there was a while back, I was talking to a friend, and he was talking to me about depression, and he was describing it as a disorder, depressive disorder, major depressive disorder. And he was telling me all of these things about it, and he was like, well, when I'm alone and when I'm in these states of depression, you don't understand. Everything is miserable. My thoughts attack me. And nobody understands. And I can talk to my family and friends about it, but they don't understand. And they basically tell me to get over it. Nobody understands. And so I like this conversation that I'm having with you, because when I'm having this conversation with you, I'm distracted, and the conversation is good, but my mind is also distracted. So he's telling me all of these things, and we're talking about a movie, and the movie is about the end of the world. And one of the characters in this movie, before the end of the world comes, the world is about to end for every human being. A planet is going to hit into the earth. And one of the characters in the movie is depressed, and before the entirety of the world ends, she finally finds bliss. She's finally in a state of joy, because she's going to have reprieve from the depression. She's going to have reprieve from the unrelenting negative thoughts that consume her mind all of the time. And he was telling me that he resonated with that character. And he said he doesn't want to be in that state, and he doesn't want his own end to come. He just wants an end to the pain that he feels all of the time, specifically when he's alone. And then he invoked a Bible verse, a Bible story and a Bible verse. And he was like, Paul is going through the Middle East, and Paul is telling everyone the good news of Christ, and for doing that, Paul gets tortured and thrown into prison and exiled from countries, and Paul faces all sorts of adversity. And what my friend told me is that he really resonates with that, and he believes that that is the truth of Christ and Christianity, which is this one phrase, which is, to live is Christ, to die is gain. But when he said it, he emphasized the aspect that is, to die is gain. And I noticed that, and he wasn't giving any breath. He wasn't really giving any the due to the first part of the phrase, which is, to live is Christ. To live is Christ. He was focused on to die is gain. And so after he told me all of that, I was like, yeah, but Paul also said that if I don't fulfill the purpose that God has given to me, then my life means nothing. My life is only worth living if I use it to fulfill the purpose that God has given me. And so I tell him that because the way that he was thinking was like a person bowing out of the race. Life is like a marathon, life is a race, and he was essentially saying, I just need to quit running. I will be happy when I don't have to continue running, because the running is pain. These thoughts, life itself is so much pain. I'll be content when I'm done running. And I'm like, no, you have to keep running until the race is finished. Like, you're here for a reason. You have something to do. And I bring that up because I'm happier than ever. Maybe it doesn't seem like it, but I'm happier than ever. Happy in terms of grateful. Happy in terms of my life is harder than it's ever been. It is brutal. This world is beating me. And I'm happier than I've ever been, because maybe I thought when I began this journey, that which I needed to create was writing a book. Maybe I thought what I needed to create was recording these podcasts. But really what I needed to do, not necessarily create myself, but I needed to participate in redemption. I needed to change who I was. I needed to let go of the way that the world was forcing me to be, and to the extent that I was acquiescing as well. I needed to let go of that and subordinate myself to God. Not be afraid of these people in Europe who were like, oh, if they're out of bread, let them eat cake, because that is what they're doing to us right now. And so those people in Europe came across and they were like, anything to get away from these guys. These guys are nihilistic, and they love the pleasures that the world can give them. They love this honey that is on the branch that these two mice are eating. And I need something more. We were meant to live for so much more. Right. And it's interesting because now I've been doing this podcast for quite some time, and I've been living in a van for quite some time, year and a half almost, for both of those. And one of the very first episodes that I did, I called it "To Live is Christ, to Die is Gain." And that's what he told me. But to live is Christ. Despite how hard and how tumultuous this journey is, despite how brutally this world will beat you up and make you feel alone and make you feel trapped, the honey that it offers is not worthwhile. And the fear that it tries to push upon you, you ought not let enter your heart. Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid. Because if you consume yourself with that honey, the honey that this world offers, maybe I could have walked a different path where I made a bunch of money in this world and I got all of the pleasures and I didn't have to feel this constant pain that I'm feeling right now of the world being against me and living paycheck to paycheck and freezing at night in a van. And instead I would actually have a warm stove, and instead I would have a warm shower to sleep in at night, and maybe I would have even more, greater things. But if I had those things, what would they be worth? Certainly not my soul. If I gained all of the pleasures in the world, and all of the worldly desires, what would that be worth if I lost my soul? It would be worth nothing. It would be worth nothing, and for that reason, despite how hard, I just want to be truthful about that. I'm not trying to say that to complain, but I guess I say it because my life is very hard for me. But I know, man, there's nobody for whom life isn't incredibly arduous, especially based on what is happening in modernity and with the economy and how they're wrecking us. Life is hard for everyone. And so maybe somebody will hear that and resonate with it. But if you are aware to the circumstances, and if you are aware to how different things could be, at least you still have your soul. At least you still have your soul, and you've got a little bit of freedom, you've got a little bit of wiggle room, and you can gain more wiggle room to nourish your soul. There is a purpose in this world. And our life means nothing if we don't use it to pursue the mission that God has set up before us. But if we use it to fulfill the mission that God has given us, then through Christ anything is possible. And for now, that is all that I have. Goodbye.